Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time we have a review of the Infinix Hot 30. Let's get started. This brand has recently arrived in Mexico, but in India and other regions is one of the leading brands and bestsellers in the world. This success has been due to the fact that it manages very tight prices, with specifications that we usually do not find in this same price range. For example, this device has specifications of a mid-range device, but its price is entry-level. In Mexico, it is available in two configurations. The basic one is 128 gigabytes of storage at a price of 3,899 pesos. On the screen, you can see the reference price in dollars. If you are not from Mexico and want to get an idea, but remember that the prices here are not the same as there. However, the edition with 256 gigabytes of storage is also available at a price of 4,199 pesos. Again, you see the reference in dollars, and I think it is a very attractive device, especially for the amount of storage and the processor that in the price range I think performs very well. Its official distributors in Mexico are Liverpool, Sears, and Amazon, although the basic model can also be found with official distribution in Suburbia and Sam's. As you will notice, Infinix did not seek the strategy of allying with a phone company, probably to try to adjust the price as much as possible, and they have succeeded very well. Now come with me to know point by point this device. Remember that there is the Free Fire Special Edition, which is the one distributed in Mexico. It even comes with a special edition that comes with additional accessories, but it seems to me that as of the day of recording this video, that edition is already sold out. Even so, all the customization of the system comes with this Free Fire theme. On the front, we find a traditional design within what is expected in its range. As you may notice, we don't have ultra-small bezels, but fortunately we do have a circular cutout for camera placement rather than a notch-like cutout. The bottom bezel is the largest, but still considerably small. Here on the front, there is no special Gorilla Glass protection, although Infinix claims that it is a glass developed by themselves that offers good resistance, but we do not know how high it can be. On the right side, we have a button that is also a fingerprint reader and volume buttons. On the top, there is absolutely nothing, while on the left side, we have placed the tray to place the SIM card. In Mexico, the version that is distributed is dual SIM, although this may vary in other regions. By the way, since we are taking a look at the side, you should know that its thickness is 8.4 millimeters. On the bottom, we have headphone jack, a microphone, USB-C port, and the main speaker. It has a weight of 196 grams. So it is not characterized by being very thin and very light, but it is in the average of smartphones. The back cover is plastic, although it has a look that tries to mimic glass. However, notice how it has a finish that reflects lighting in an interesting way to give the phone a nice style and not look so plain. The camera module has a slightly different color finish than the rest of the body of the device. In this case, I have the edition in a dark blue color, but it is also in a color similar to turquoise and in another edition in white. The cameras look great, but it will not stand out in this section, I'll tell you a little later, and being a device that seeks to adjust its price, it does not offer us more certification regarding water resistance or something similar. The screen is 6.78 inches. We are in front of a large screen, although the diagonal also makes the proportion a little higher than traditional. The specific resolution is 1080 by 2460 pixels. It seems to me that it makes good use of the front. And if you're looking at the content from the front, it's going to have a good display. It even maintains considerably good viewing angles for the price range in which it competes. So we have not only a good size, but also a good level of detail when viewing content up close. Although I consider that its weakest point is when you are viewing content with white color, as there you will notice much more that it loses a lot of brightness when you turn it. And also it feels like an extremely cold screen. But this is something very normal to see in devices of this price. The maximum brightness will allow you to comfortably use this device outdoors without being its specialty, because we are not talking about a high-end equipment. And the minimum brightness manages to go low enough, but possibly falls a little short here. So if you're going to use this cell phone a lot at night, it would be appropriate to set the dark theme to try not to emit so much light. Also remember that we also have some eye care modes to reduce cold tone of the screen, and in fact it also has a color calibration setting. Through the settings, you can also adjust the touch sampling rate. In case you're one of those who wants to play games, it can go up to 270 Hz, which in this price range will be a very good response. And it also allows you to adjust the refresh rate of the screen, since the maximum is 90 Hz, and with this, it allows you to show fluid movements when making transitions and also when playing games. And in this price range, it is not so common to see a combination of a high refresh rate with a high resolution. Here we do find both features, therefore the cell phone in terms of screen I think is very good. Now in the Spanish audio track, you are listening to an audio recorded with the microphone that this device has. It only has one microphone at the bottom, and here it is very clear that this is one of the points where they cut the budget in order to adjust the price. Normally devices with a single microphone cost much less, and in this price range it is very common to see devices with two microphones, so this is one of its weak points. When recording video, you have to be careful not to cover the microphone. I don't know if it was heard, but I said you won't hear anything if I cover the microphone. It also does not have stereo sound pickup, so if you are going to record a concert or something like that, you are going to feel much less ambience by having only one microphone. So the microphone experience is very low, but the speaker experience is very good as it does offer two microphones, and that is rare in the price range. Usually you will find only one speaker, but here we do have stereo sound, which is going to be of a simple quality. But fortunately it does give us this much more immersive audio experience to receive audio from both directions. The volume is loud, but it can get a little saturated when you turn it up to the max. How about listening to a little test? Remember though, it's not the same as listening to it live. Fortunately, in the settings, you will find a DTS sound section that allows you to select a preset to enhance the experience. Even note that you can use an equalizer without the need to connect headphones. It is 5 bands, so it is a simple equalizer, but it is appreciated because very few manufacturers include an equalizer in a device of a similar price. The front camera of this device is 8 megapixels with f2.0 aperture and fixed focus. The camera has artificial intelligence and offers us a simple capture speed, but within what one would expect in a device of this range. If we hold down the shutter, we have a burst of up to 20 pictures, which is very fast, and as alternatives for a more comfortable shooting, you can enable the capture by touching any part of the screen, or you can also use the fingerprint reader as a shutter. You can also select the volume buttons to trigger the photo, but do not have the capture showing the palm of the hand. What it does have are various color filters that you can apply in real time. We will also have a beauty mode with different parameters. We have simply by artificial intelligence or manually, we can regulate the blurring of the face. If you want a face a little more refined, and also the size of your eyes. So that with all these parameters to the maximum, you can look as fake as an alien. This front camera is simple, but it goes according to the price in which the device is distributed. It doesn't have as good contrast, nor is it as detailed, but for social networking I think it's fine. This would be the maximum range you can achieve by stretching your arm, and I think that fortunately, despite having fixed focus, it maintains a good level of detail in the face. Also remember, if you have a panorama mode for this front camera, so you can go out with a large group of friends, and it's a feature that's not that common to see on devices, although it's not 100% accurate in merging the photos and there may be some small flaws, but overall I think it's useful. Indoors, we're still going to have a very similar result to what we were already seeing with the camera outdoors, as we don't have as much level of detail. In fact, here a little more noise starts to appear in the darker areas, but fortunately the colors are still well preserved. I insist that in this price range we will not find such amazing cameras, so it doesn't have a spectacular camera, but we can accept it. In backlight, notice how the preview doesn't look optimized because it's all burnt background, but fortunately it does have automatic HDR. After processing, notice how it manages to optimize the lights in a better way because the sky and clouds appear, although there is still a bit of grain that is not very nice, confirming that it is not a high-level camera, but in backlight at least it manages to behave well. At night, with a close light source, you will get a good result, although the darker areas will of course have noise and grain, but nothing serious. The photo really comes out well in backlighting at night, which is a super complicated action. Notice that it manages to make a considerably good result. Of course there will be better results, but on more expensive devices. In this case, I had no direct light source to the face. That's why it comes out with a lot of noise to try to get enough illumination. But believe me, there are devices that are going to give you a worse result in this kind of scenario in this same price range. So it's nothing surprising, but I think it's not bad. This is the result in darker areas where there is no direct lighting, and definitely here it suffers tremendously to capture color well and still has a lot of grainy presence. Fortunately, this device incorporates a front flash that you can get to illuminate, and as you realize, it improves in a major way. Remember that this camera does allow you to capture portrait photos, although it is not able to detect objects. So the result is not as natural as professional photos, but fortunately the edge detection on people is very good, and the blur also looks nice with a good bokeh effect in the background. At night, the portrait result is also positive. That's why I insist that this camera did not disappoint me, although I was not that impressed either. On the back, we will find the main camera, which is 50 megapixels with f1.6 aperture. If you don't know what this means, it has a very good aperture that even high-end devices don't have. So the light input is amazing on this camera, although we see its results in a moment. The secondary camera simply comes across as an artificial intelligence camera that in practical life is useless. That's why I call it marketing camera. So consider that it only has one camera. The speed will be very similar to what we found on the front camera, so it's not too fast a camera, but one that does have artificial intelligence. It also has different color filters that you can apply and preview in real time, and if you touch the screen, you can adjust the focus and also the exposure manually, although it lacks a professional mode that allows us to move more parameters manually. So that may be a weak point in case you were looking for something like that. It doesn't have an automatic document scanner, but it does have a special mode. So if you enter that mode, it will automatically recognize the edges of this document to automatically crop them. Unfortunately, it doesn't scan QR codes from the main camera either, but they do add a shortcut to Google Lens with which you can do this scanning. So it just takes a bit more steps, but finally you can have this functionality. The speed of this camera is not spectacular. Notice that it takes a little bit longer than we would like to start capturing. In fact, the burst also takes a little bit longer to start, although through the burst it is surprisingly fast, but you must anticipate the movement if you want to capture the exact moment. It does have a high resolution mode where you can take advantage of the 50 megapixels of the sensor, but honestly it doesn't feel as detailed as other devices that also have 50 megapixel cameras. However, anyway, considering the price, I think it does give us good pictures in terms of level of detail. In fact, it is very curious because it allows us to take 50 megapixel pictures even applying zoom 2x. That is something very uncommon even in more expensive devices, but I guess it will be through pixel interpolation because the 50 megapixels are achieved 100% in 1x, and it does look strange that in 2x it also allows us 50 megapixels, but it is curious because I even feel that it has more level of detail than the photo in 1x. Very strange. Overall, it's not a camera that's going to stand out too much in its segment. It doesn't get to stand out in any of the aspects, and in fact, if you notice, it's a lens that already has some blur on the edges, so it doesn't offer us that much quality. Indoors, you notice how the colors come out well, only in this case, the focus doesn't seem to react very well when you don't have that much light because all these objects came out of focus. But speaking specifically about the color, I think it represents it well, although again, it's not free of graininess. In a light backlight scenario, the preview does not look optimized, but it does have automatic HDR. So after processing, it comes out a better result by balancing these areas well. So the sky is generally going to look good. You're not going to find the sky always burned out, but remember, this is still a light backlight. However, for its price range, it performs well. This is the result of night photography, still with a direct light scenario. As you will notice, it comes out well. Even the dark areas don't come out as noisy, and if you use the night mode, I think it comes out a much cleaner picture. With better defined details, and all that noise and graininess that was present in the darker areas is completely eliminated. So the night mode is well optimized. This would be the result in very low indirect light conditions. The device comes to suffer considerably, especially with respect to the noise and graininess that is generated in the darker areas. With night mode, the result is definitely greatly optimized, eliminating almost 100% of the noise and grain and improving the colors, and this would be the result with flash, which I don't use much, but if you're interested, here it is. Now let's talk about the zoom, which is completely digital. This photograph you're looking at is from the normal distance. Now we have the 2x picture, which definitely doesn't look with a good level of detail. If you want it to come out with better quality, I recommend you enable the 50 megapixel mode, where it did surprise us. But in auto mode with 2x zoom, it comes out normal. Here we have now a picture with 5x, which I think is the maximum where it still offers us an acceptable quality, because although it lets us go up to 10x, it looks like nothing more than a stretched picture and really does not have much optimization. Remember that it doesn't have an ultra-wide lens, but it does have a panorama mode. This is the result you could get. So fortunately, it keeps the colors well, and it does well at blending all these pictures together to get a result with good breadth. The camera also has autofocus, so yes, it can focus on close objects or also tiny objects, even though it doesn't have a macro camera. I think the result is good. I like the colors too. And you can apply some digital zoom before taking the picture to have an even more uniform focus, and the result is correct. The device also allows us to capture portrait photos, but that camera I mentioned before that it is supposed to be an artificial intelligence camera. Well, we already confirmed that it is useless because look at how the objects are still out of focus. So, portrait photographs do not seem very advanced to me, but even in people we see some edges a little cloudy and blurry, so it doesn't seem to me a good exponent in this section. The device is capable of recording video in up to 2K, so that is one of its strong points. In addition, it has a beautifying effect, although the resolution only goes down to HD, but you have some beauty presets that you can use. When recording video, we will be able to take screenshots to view them as photographs. We can also pause and resume recording, although it is worth noting the absence of a convenient slider for zoom, so you must use 2 fingers when applying zoom. In addition, it does not let you manipulate the flashlight and does not let you rotate the front camera without stopping the recording. We also have a movie mode, which are some templates that you can use to record a special video. For example, here we have the template called Superstar, and we can start recording this video, and it will give us some fragments little by little, and after recording these fragments, it will generate a complete video. After finishing recording the clips, it takes a little bit of time to process it, and here you have the final result already with editing applied, even some special filters and animations. Infinix is one of the few manufacturers that allow video recording in 2K. So in resolution, it is very good because it is above practically all its competitors, although the actual video quality is not that good because it has some aggressive jumps in exposure, and it doesn't feel like it goes at a very high bit rate. So, movements can also feel a bit jerky at times. Indoors, fortunately, it captures colors well, and you don't feel that the presence of noise spoils the whole result. However, some exposure jumps are still very noticeable, and even the white balance can change abruptly as well. Backlighting will give full priority to illuminating the face, and again, the jumps in exposure can feel very abrupt. Therefore, I don't highly recommend shooting in this type of backlit environment. At night, with backlit environments, we have a good result, although it has presence of noise, but in the pressure range, we could not demand much more from it. In truth, it's not going to give us such a spectacular result. And if you record in environments with very low indirect light, it's definitely going to suffer a lot more with a very exaggerated noise presence. What I definitely didn't like is that it doesn't have stabilization. So, the video definitely does not come out well when you are walking, much less when you are running, and even in shots where you are not walking, you feel that the stabilization is missing. For example, here in the zoom, you will also notice that the absence of stabilization works against it because although it maintains a very good image quality and level of detail even up to 10x, it needs a better stabilization. The focus when you have a lot of light is going to be correct. It does not seem to be difficult to adapt. It refocuses quickly, even in subtle movements. It can also be refocusing, but it will give priority to the object that has the largest size in the whole area of the video. One thing I liked is that this device can record portrait video. This is something very rare to see. In fact, I believe that among its competitors in the same price range, none will be able to do it. The quality is basic though. In fact, it can't even keep my hand in focus. If you zoom out too far, it cancels out of focus completely. It doesn't gradually shift. And of course, it won't be able to keep objects in focus. In addition to the abrupt exposure changes that are still preserved also in this mode. So, it is recommended for very simple shots, but it is very good that it does have a portrait recording mode. In fact, a curious thing is that it also has slow motion. Although some movements feel interpolated and the resolution is only in HD, but it can be in about 20 or even 240 frames per second. So really the slow motion is a strong point because in its price range they don't usually have this feature. On the other hand, the fast camera is curious that it seems to have better stabilization, something that does not exist in normal video. Although it goes from 15x, that seems to me too fast for movements of people. But be careful with the fastest it can go because it is 5,400, which seems to me exaggerated. You can record plant growth without any problem. I recorded at 1200x and the truth is that the result is simply spectacular. This is one of its strongest points. The front camera can also record in 2K, so the resolution again becomes a strong point, but the quality is not so high, especially because again we will find aggressive jumps in the exposure. We will not have stabilization and backlight gives priority to illuminate the face, but sacrifices the background in a very important way. So yes, you will find many white areas totally burned out, but in the price range it was something we could expect. We weren't expecting anything superior. Indoors we will have a bit of noise presence, but the truth is that I think the result is good, although again we will find those aggressive jumps in the exposure that are not very pleasing. And if there is a lot of movement due to the lack of light, you also feel a much more blurred movement. It is curious that even this front camera does have a portrait mode. This is a very strong point for the fact of having the feature. However, if you need an environment with perfect lighting, if you want a good result and practically no movement, because if there is movement, the artificial result will be very noticeable. And remember that it is not able to focus on objects, only your face and your body. Here we will also find fast camera, but it goes from 15x, so it is very fast, and we do not have any dual recording function or something like that. This device comes with Android 13 from the factory, which is a very good thing because you do not have to be waiting for that update as in other devices. The customization layer used on top is XOS in its 12.6.0 version. Infinix promises for this device monthly security patches with a 2-year support. Honestly, for a device of this price, it comes good to be promised at least that. It is not very clear if they are going to upgrade to the next version of Android, but it is likely that they will. In addition to having the latest version of Android to date, Infinix is a manufacturer that adds several additional features that we don't usually find in all devices. For starters, you do have floating windows by swiping up with 3 fingers, and this small window you can resize and move it wherever you want. And something that strikes me is that even YouTube is available in this window mode, but you can only open one window at a time. However, in this price range, I think it is remarkable to be able to be with some application floating and other applications in the background, although this option must be enabled in the settings. Anyway, we also have a smart bar that we can display by doing this gesture from an edge of the screen, and from here we will have shortcuts to some applications that will run in this floating window mode. And we will also have access to some tools to take screenshots or also to scan QR codes or free up memory. Infinix also offers a feature called Social Turbo that takes care of improving your WhatsApp experience. For example, if you are on a call or video call, you can enable the voice changer to make your voice sound like Chipmunk or deeper and similar effects. You also have the option to enable facial beauty on video calls as well as a voice recorder on calls made via WhatsApp. It also has a quick view mode that lets you read all your messages without being marked as read, or you will also be able to read messages that your contacts have deleted. And finally, you can tell the flash to turn on when you get messages from WhatsApp. It also has a smart suggestions widget that will learn how you use your phone to give you specific suggestions for applications at certain times of the day. What you should know is that they add many applications that we could consider as bloatware because they are not necessarily useful applications. Look at the amount of additional applications we have from Infinix, and some of them do not have good translations to understand how they work. This allows you to create music with some loops. There is another one that allows you to play songs on multiple devices at the same time, but it must be locally downloaded music in MP3 or similar files. We also have its own health application and a game store in addition to Google Play Store. It also has its own translator, its own video player, another file sharing app, its own app store called Palm Store, and another app called Boomplay for streaming music. So oversaturated with apps and features, especially since there are apps that duplicate functions and it feels a bit redundant. For example, in the settings, you can move exactly the same thing that you can move in this app called Phone Master, so it would be nice if Infinix simplified their system a bit to have a better usability, but in terms of number of functions, it is very good. This device has a side fingerprint reader which is a bit thin, but it works well. It allows you to add up to 5 different registrations, so you can add various fingerprints of your friends and more. The device also has facial recognition, but remember that it is only a 2-dimensional facial recognition, so I don't recommend it as much if your priority is security. In fact, the device itself warns you that it could be unlocked by similar people. Fortunately, it does integrate Google Smart Lock, so this device is able to stay unlocked in secure environments such as your home, a specific location, or while on some Bluetooth devices. We also have specific application locking and a secure folder called X-Hide. In this secure folder, you can store not only documents and images, but also applications. We also have the ability to clone some applications to use multiple accounts on the same cell phone, and we have a child mode that will allow us to determine some limits when lending this phone to a little one. It even includes alerts for bad posture. You choose the applications that the little one will be able to use, and that's it, nothing else will be available. And to be able to get out of this, you can put your pattern or your fingerprint. Although in this case, I do not know why the fingerprint reader does not react in this, possibly correct it with an update, but still you are protected because the child cannot get out so easy that way. It includes the Google Password Manager to automatically fill in some fields, but its performance is not very good lately in any brand. It also includes a function called Anti-Spy Filter that will attenuate the content of the screen and will only show the content that you tell it to. This is so that people who are watching from the side are not able to see all the content. It also includes functions to prevent theft. For example, if you leave your cell phone charging, it will emit an alert when the charger is disconnected, or the same thing will happen when the headphones are disconnected. And if your cell phone is stolen, you will have to use Google's Find My Device functions because Infinix does not yet have its own implementation. In battery, it neither disappoints nor surprises. Its capacity is 5,000 milliamps, and in the test, I did it performed about the same as the average device with the same capacity battery. It took me 2 hours and 38 minutes to discharge 50%, applying multiple calculations in the background and playing videos in the foreground, so it's within expectations. Fortunately, the charging is indeed considerably fast, especially considering the price. In 15 minutes, we recovered 27%. In 30 minutes, we were up to 52%, and the full charge finished in 1 hour and 16 minutes. Although it's clear that in the last stage of the charge, it gets a little bit slower to try to protect the battery a little bit more, but I think we could say it's within expectations. Even the fast charging could be a plus or minus point. The battery-focused software comes mistranslated as it says power marathon, although in reality, I guess the better translation would be something related to power saving. We have a basic power saving mode, or we also have a much more extreme power saving mode that you can get to use in emergencies. As you realize, this mode restricts virtually all applications, leaving only the essentials, although it does not allow you to add at least 1 or 2 applications that for you are still essential. In addition, it does not include an intelligent charging system or charging lock that allows us to take care of the battery life. It only includes an option for the phone to ring when it has finished charging. The connectivity of the device is within expectations. We do not have the latest in Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, but it is fine, since we are not talking about a high-end device to which we can demand to have the latest. It still seems to me that it will have good speed and good stability, but where we must highlight something very positive is that it has NFC. This is a small chip that comes on the back of the device that would allow you to make mobile payments or easily connect to some other devices and accessories, so it's a feature that we don't usually find in devices of this price point. That's why it's a very strong point. You can use Google Wallet to make payments with your bank cards simply by using your cell phone, and at this price, it's something very rare to see. It's also capable of projecting your screen wirelessly, not only to Chromecast, but also to other TVs. And again, that's a feature you'll hardly find in the price range, so that's another one of its strengths. It can't project via cable, but you can connect it to Android Auto, both wired and wireless. You should know that it doesn't have 5G connectivity, but in the price range we couldn't get too picky. Fortunately, through software, it does have an option for you to decide which applications can use your mobile data and which applications cannot. So you don't get a bad surprise in terms of data consumption. This device does integrate accelerometer, also geomagnetic field sensor, orientation sensor, gyroscope, which is something that is not very common to see in low-cost devices, and we also have a good light sensor and a physical proximity sensor, so you are not saving any kind of sensor costs. In fact, I think this is one of its strongest points because in the price range, it's the device that has probably the most sensors. Let's move on to talk about the ecosystem, and in this sense we are going to find something very variable. Everything will depend on the region you are in. In Mexico, the Infinix ecosystem is still very small and developing, but in India and other regions it has a very extended ecosystem, including many headsets, laptops, and many other things. So, at least on this side of the world, it still feels like a simple experience that relies a lot on Google. We don't have such advanced interaction between their devices. But having Android, it comes with Nearby Share, which allows you to send and receive files wirelessly with other Android devices, and also the headphones with Google Fast Pair are going to connect quickly. Regarding cloud storage, it also depends a lot on Google, at least on this side of the world, because although it does have its own Infinix cloud, there you can't back up files or photos, but only some basic settings and contacts. And with regard to the Internet of Things, it also depends on Google through the Google Home application, which in fact in the Quick Settings panel is already included. All the way to the bottom, a selector for your home devices, so from there you could also turn lights on and off and other things. So in short, pretty much the same thing that other Android devices that also rely 100% on Google have. Now we're going to do an app opening test, and I should tell you that I'm using the button navigation system because the gesture navigation doesn't seem to be as responsive. So what I should tell you in this section is that it's got MediaTek's Helio G88 processor, a processor that for the price is way above what several competitors are offering. So it's going to be a good thing. Of course, it's not going to be something like what we would find at the high end. So you're seeing yourself that some applications take a little bit of time to finish opening. It's not going to give us a high-end experience, but a smooth enough experience to be able to open multiple applications. So here we are ending this test. You should also know that it comes with 8 GB of RAM, in addition to the virtual RAM it can use. However, despite having a large amount of storage, it is eMMC storage. That means it's not very fast. So I think it has a little bit of an impact on the speed of reading all these applications that we have installed, even though the processor may be very good. On average, it took 5.25 seconds to open each of these applications, and I insist that I suspect that this is due to the slow storage that it has. Since it's not even UFS 2 or anything like that, but once these applications are loaded into RAM, notice that it's able to move a little bit more nimbly. So even though it doesn't open the apps very fast for the first time, after opening them, you're already able to move much more nimbly, as you can tell, thanks to the large amount of RAM that this device has. Because in RAM did not sacrifice so much version, because it does integrate LPDDR RAM 4X. So the storage is very slow, but the RAM is not so slow. In short, do not close the applications that you are going to use constantly so you can maintain a little bit more agile performance with the execution of this device. Now let's see how long it takes to export a clip with a total duration of 1 minute, joining clips recorded with this device. We are going to export it in full HD, although several videos were recorded in 2K, which is the maximum it allows. Let's see how long it takes to finish. There it is, almost 40 seconds, confirming us that it does not offer so much power when editing video, and this is because the writing speed on the storage is going to be very low, because we are not talking about a modern storage. However, for simple video editing it can work well. For running games, we have the application called X Arena, where the games we have installed will be collected, and we can also slide to select some special performance setting, or also if we want to hide notifications or reject calls while we are playing, plus the healthy mode that can give you some reminder if you have been playing for a long time, or also if you are playing with a bad posture. So, it definitely offers good settings to complement the gaming experience. In fact, when starting a game, we are going to be able to load the additional options panel. From here, we can open some applications in a floating window to be able to answer messages or consult something without having to leave our game. We also have tools to take screenshots both in image and video, and we can clear the memory, block notifications, reject calls, and if the game is downloading something, we can select this option so that somehow the screen dims and does not consume so much battery while the download continues. Then we can resume the option by swiping up. We also have the option called Magic Button, with which we can map the volume buttons to work as a virtual button in the game. The mapping of these buttons is going to be very simple. Just open this tool and select which button you want to map. Then you will choose the location of this button to map it on top of the virtual button, and then you can shoot using the physical buttons. That's a very nice feature. In Call of Duty, this device by default gives us the low graphic quality at a medium frame rate. We can turn the graphics quality up to medium and also turn the frame rate up to high quality. Although having a MediaTek processor, it does not support various advanced graphics options. However, with these settings, it did considerably well. It had 40 frames per second on average with 100% stability, and its high peak was 40, while its low peak was 36. The temperature on the outdoor stage was 39.5 degrees Celsius, so it was very good. The truth is that the low peak was only at the moment of falling out of the plane, and from then on, the device maintained a good performance, although we have to consider that it does not have such advanced graphics. Almost always devices with MediaTek processors give total priority to fluidity, discarding a bit the graphic quality. So if you are not so demanding with respect to effects, textures, and more, the device will give you a very good performance in games. Inside Free Fire, we chose the graphics options in Ultra with the high resolution and also the shadows on, as well as enabling the ocean filter. In fact, we also enabled the frames per second on high for this test. And with this setting, it gave us 34 frames per second on average, but the stability was 69%. Its highest peak was 55 and its lowest peak was 0. So it is curious that despite being a device that we say has an alliance with Free Fire, it does not give us a higher stability. Although it must be said that we chose the most advanced graphic configuration, possibly if you play without shadows and with a slightly lower graphics configuration, you will have a better performance. It doesn't mean that it's crashing or that the experience is bad, just that there will be times when the device will suffer a little with some stumbles. But notice how even when recording the screen, we have good performance without the device feeling too sluggish. In the SpongeBob game, the graphics quality we selected was medium resolution with medium quality, and we simply went up to 60 frames per second. Keeping smoothing enabled, it should be noted that this game is even more complicated and gave us 23 frames per second on average with 91% stability. Its highest peak was 26 and its lowest was 8, with an outdoor stage temperature at the end of the test of 38.2 degrees Celsius. It is appreciated that the temperature handling is very good, although it is possible that it sacrifices a bit of stability. So you can tell that this device has good temperature management, but sacrificing a little bit of the stability, possibly so that it doesn't get as hot. It tries to bump the processor so it doesn't take it to the extreme. Still, it gives us a good gaming experience. You always have to consider the price, and I think that at this price, you are not going to find many more alternatives that give you a good experience in this type of content that are already much more complicated than simple 2D games. So it's very good. You're just going to notice some moments where it reloads certain textures, and again, as I say, since the storage is not very fast, it may be in those moments where the performance also drops a little bit. In Genshin Impact, by default, this game loads at very low quality, and for our test, we left it there. We simply went up to 60 frames per second to push it a bit more to the limit, and with this setting, it gave us 18 frames per second on average, with 66% stability. Its highest peak was 28, and its lowest was 0, freezing for a few moments. But that's not common. The freezing times are very short, and we must remember that this is one of the heaviest games, although we loaded it with a very low graphic quality. The external temperature did not exceed 40 degrees Celsius, and that confirms us that it gives full priority to keep a cool execution of the device to avoid overheating, sacrificing a little of the graphic performance. Still, for the price, I think you can play it in a good way, but don't think it's going to be a 100% smooth experience with super advanced graphics. For the moment, we come to the end of this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, you know you can let us know, and we'll see you next time.